Stewie was going about a normal day for him. Lois had woken him up in the morning and he groggily got out of bed. Ah, damn you, vile woman, for getting me up this early. He repeated those words every morning, but he never truly meant it when he said it. At first, Stewie was all about world domination and killing Lois, but as time passed, those goals just turned into him making new inventions or going on adventures with Brian. His family annoyed him from time to time, but it was manageable. However, with his latest invention that he was making, he couldn't wait to finish it. It was an aging machine where it could speed up or reverse the aging process. Stewie had been studying the human genome and the aging process as a whole and was fascinated by it. The idea that something as small as telomeres eroding over time, possibly being the reason for aging, was amazing. And if he could somehow find a way to tamper with the telomeres, he could control aging as a whole, and in turn, create immortality. Stewie could become a god. Brian walked in and asked, "So, what you working on now?" Stewie responded, "Dog, this machine will change everything. It controls aging, speeding it up or reversing it. I've created a way for immortality." Brian was shocked. "Stewie, that's amazing. So why not test it out on me?" Brian jokingly asked. Stewie laughed. "Ha, in your dreams, dog. Unless you have $10 billion or something else that might interest me." Brian laughed. "Yeah, you know I don't. Anyways, good luck." Stewie nodded. He wouldn't tell the white dog, but he would use it to reverse his aging, making Brian younger. After all, the dog was his best friend. He just wasn't going to tell him that. Stewie was almost done, and he had a smile across his face, but that's when he heard yelling, and Chris ran into his room with Peter chasing him. The two were laughing and acting like idiots, so nothing out of the ordinary. But as they ran around Stewie's room, they got closer to the aging machine, and Stewie yelled at them to get out, but to no avail. Peter then pushed Chris, laughing all the while, and Chris crashed into the aging machine, destroying it. And from its destruction, a massive wave of energy was released that sent a shockwave around the house and knocked everyone back. Stewie regained his composure and got up and looked at his machine. It was wrecked, his hard work gone, just like that, all because of those two morons, he thought. This angered him beyond comprehension, but he hadn't been pushed over the edge just yet. That's when Stewie looked towards his doorway and saw Brian, but he looked different. Something was happening to him. Something bad. Stewie ran over to him and Brian was on the ground, and the baby realized what was happening to the dog. The energy released from the destruction of Stewie's aging machine had hit Brian head on and was affecting him. It was speeding up his age rapidly, years going by in minutes. Brian was already in his older years, so when Stewie realized this, he had a grim expression on his face. Brian was feeling the effects, and as he looked at Stewie, he realized what was about to happen. "Stewie, it's okay. I lived a pretty good life. If this is the way I go out, then so be it," Brian spoke. Stewie, with tears in his eyes, held Brian as the aging sped up and his body began to decay and responded, "Damn it, dog. No, you can't leave me. You can't leave me like that. You're my best friend, the only one I can tolerate." "You don't have to worry. I knew that someday that this would happen, and today's that day." It was getting harder for Brian to speak, and as the years piled on, "Just know that a dog is a man's best friend, and Stewie, you were my best friend." The tears continued streaming down Stewie's face as Brian spoke one last time. "Was I a good dog?" Brian was barely able to ask, and now full on bawling, Stewie spoke. You were the greatest dog I could have ever asked for." And after hearing that, Brian smiled one last time, and the energy from the aging machine turned him into dust and bones, and eventually decayed his body altogether, leaving nothing behind. All the while, Peter and Chris watched, not really realizing what was happening, just that Brian had turned into dust. The two looked at Stewie, but that's when he turned around and yelled, "You fat bastards, do you know what you've done? You've ruined everything and killed my best friend." Peter and Chris could now understand Stewie and were shocked. Peter asked Chris, Did Stewie just speak, and did Brian die? If so, we can finally get another dog." Stewie heard this and his eye twitched. Get another dog, just like that. They didn't care about Brian at all. That was it. Stewie's rage went beyond comprehension. He was going to kill them all. Stewie grabbed a baseball bat from the corner of his room and walked over to Peter and hit him over the head, knocking him out. And he did the same with Chris, and Peter woke up tied to a chair with Chris knocked out on the floor in front of him. What the hell?" Peter questioned. He looked around, and the last thing he remembered was his baby knocking him out. But he saw Chris on the floor and Stewie in front of him. Stewie laughed and spoke. You killed my best friend. My family. So I'm going to kill your family in front of you. Peter was shocked, and that's when Stewie used the baseball bat and proceeded to bash Chris's brains in front of Peter. You see that? You see that? That's what happens when you fuck with me, fat man. Stewie evilly laughed. And that's when he opened his closet and revealed the tied up Lois and Meg. Peter begged, Stewie, we're sorry. Please, don't kill your mother and sister. He looked at his father. Oh, like how you killed Brian. Yeah, I don't think so. Stewie responded. He dragged Meg by her hair and she screamed, and that's when Stewie pulled out a pocket knife and slit Meg's throat in front of Peter and Lois, all the while laughing. He let her leak out next to what was left of Chris. And now for the woman, Stewie chuckled. Peter screamed, No, Stewie, don't. However, his youngest son didn't listen and dragged Lois in front of Peter. Stewie removed her gag and Lois cried, asking, Peter, what's going on? Why is he doing this? Peter responded, It's gonna be okay. I'll find a way out of this. Stewie smiled. Yeah, I don't think so. And he walked over to his weapons room and came out with a ray and shot Lois, but nothing happened. What'd you do? Peter asked, and Stewie coldly replied, Oh, you'll see. Lois was turned inside out. Her skin went inwards and her bone and muscle fibers replaced them. She died a horrible death, crying while being forcibly turned into a human meat sack. Peter was lost for words. His youngest son had just murdered the rest of their family. You evil son of a bitch. Peter, with tears streaming down his face, spoke. Stewie then pulled out a gun and shot both of Peter's kneecaps. This is for my dog, you stupid fat piece of shit, he spoke. Stewie then shot Peter in the head and his body fell with the chair next to what remained of the other griffins. He dropped the gun and fell to his knees. His best friend was gone, but so was his family now. He thought about blowing his brains out for what he did, but he told himself they needed to die for Brian's death. Stewie looked up at the ceiling, blood covering his hands and his room, and he accepted the reality of his situation. He was going to finish what he started. He was going to finish the aging machine, and then make himself immortal. Stewie would become a god, and there was no one left who could stop him, as he had no one else left to try and do so.